Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Speedcast interview session. I am your host, Zoom CW, and I am very excited today because we have the man from this summer's hit sensation, hit show, Stargirl, and that is the quadruple talented Neil Jackson. You guys know him as Icicle. So let's get Neil on here now. Neil!
Hey Julio, how are you, brother?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me today on this Speedcast interview session, man. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, my
Um,
pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I always love the way that these IG live videos start. They literally start like this with one person just staring blankly at the screen, not entirely sure if they're live yet, not entirely sure if anybody's watching. And then suddenly it's like we all get plugged in and we're like, oh, okay, hey, welcome, everybody's here. It's that first 20 seconds is my favorite part of every IG live video.
that's why it's such an awkward moment, right? Because you're
Yeah.
waiting for everyone to join,
Well, you're waiting
and
for technology. You're not sure if the technology's working. You're not sure if people are watching. It's a funny thing.
So for those of you that joined early, we were testing IG Live because it's so unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen, unfortunately, with technology. So one of the things that I tend to do is to do a quick check to make sure that we don't experience anything. But unfortunately, we did have some minor technical difficulties. So thank you so much for your patience, Neil. I truly appreciate it.
It's all good.
Man, before anything else, man, congratulations. Congratulations on a wonderful debut on Stargirl as Jordan McCant. I mean, you are a villain, and I know villains, man. I know villains, and you are just a wonderful villain. And I mean, congratulations on the success. Congratulations on season 2. You guys are gonna, I mean, man,
Thank you, Julio.
just
I mean, I really
kudos.
appreciate that, and I really appreciate that from you. You're obviously a huge DC fan, and I follow you on your site. I mean, you love all the Flash stuff. You seem to be a big Reverse Flash fan. Yeah, I really appreciate that, man.
Can you tell me, Neil, how this role came about to you? Was it something that the writers
No, it was
in
super
the
simple.
producer?
I'll jump straight in. It was super simple. I've known Jeff Johns, the creator of the show, for 15 years. We did a TV show together in Vancouver 15 something years ago, which was a TV version of the Blade franchise, the Marvel Blade franchise. We got one season out of that. I played the lead villain, Marcus, in it, and Jeff was one of the writers. So I've been friends with Jeff now for 15 years. And I knew of Stargirl a little bit only because I know Jeff, but I hadn't read the comics and knew much more. And then it was January last year. He just called me up and he said, we've been greenlit for a live action series, and I'd love you to come on board and play Jordan McKent, Icicle, the sort of main villain of season 1. And he then explained to me what the character was, and the moment he started pitching it, I just fell in love with him. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jeff anyway, and Jeff's writing, but the moment he pitched Icicle to me, I was like, this. Yeah, once you know the backstory, that backstory they showed in episode 3. I mean, opening an episode like that with a guy who has been introduced to somebody who's the big evil, and the first thing you see is him crying as he's introducing his son into the room to say goodbye to the wife slash mother for the last time, and then watching her die. It's like, okay, you can do anything you want with this character because he's so humanized and laced with so much emotion, and it's something we can all relate to. And the moment he told me that, I was like, dude, I'm in. It sounds incredible.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Neil. I just can't imagine anyone else playing this role. When he was writing that role, I mean, when he was writing your character, I mean, from based upon the DC character. was he just thinking about you? Is that it? Is he just said, "Man, you got to play this role. I don't have anyone else in mind. Can you please take this role?" Is that what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to his writing process, but he called up and he said, "I'd love to offer this to you. You're the person that I want to play it." And I think there's symbiosis. I mean, he wrote the character he wanted to play, and at the same point, I fit that character that he wanted to play, so he inevitably wrote for me. So it's kind of like this symbiosis of the way it happened. Yeah, incredibly flat. I mean, look, it's flattering to be offered any role. It's especially flattering to be offered a role like this by Jeff when you know it's so personal. I mean, we all know the history of Stargirl and how he created it as an homage after the death of his sister. And so knowing how personal this story is and knowing what it means to him, the fact that he wanted me to be a part of telling that story is huge.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. So you mentioned, he was humanized because of the death of his wife, and a lot of these villains, they have these backstories, and this is one of the things I love about your show. It humanizes you,
Thank you.
and you're just not a villain because you want to be a villain, but it's because you've had some human tragedies and so forth, and even some of our heroes like Batman who go through that emotional trauma of losing
Mhm.
both of his parents. I mean that aspect of the character. How does that play into that piece? I mean, because when you were by your wife's bedside, I mean, where do you? I mean, you're an experienced actor. You've had so many projects, but is it still hard to reach down deep inside to get that emotion out?
It's a good question. It depends entirely on the material, first and foremost. And all you had to do was read that. I mean, the opening, the way it read in the script is exactly the way that it played out. It said it opens with you hear breath, then you see an empty frame and this fogged breath coming through it, and then they pull back and reveal it's Jordan, emotional, trying to control his tears, and then he looks down and you see his son as they're holding hands, and he says, "Are you ready?" And then they slowly walk into a room where Christine, the wife, is laying there, stricken with her sickness, and the two grandparents are by her side. And he introduces the son into the room, and it said in the script, he knows this is the last time they will ever see her alive, and this is the last chance his son will ever get to speak to his mother. And you read that, and I'm already emotional. And then it's just a matter of can I can I how do I service what was created to make sure that I honor this moment as authentically as possible? And when I was a younger actor, I used to do a lot of preparation. I came from theater, so it was all about doing the preparation, doing the rehearsal, setting it, and trying to then replicate it when you go on the stage and you're doing 8 performances a week. So it has to be very, very technical. And over the course of my career in film and TV, I've gradually learned that for me, it's about just surrendering to that moment, allowing the emotions to come up authentically. And if I'm not in my way, then the emotions will happen. Um, and not being married to the end result, not being married to I want a single tear coming down on this line, or I want to have this level of emotion at this point. It's more about just committing to the moment and allowing the emotion to come out authentically, because cameras cameras capture real life. As much as the situation is artificial, it's been scripted. It looks like there's 5 of us in that room, but in reality there were 25 of us in that room, because there's the camera guys and the directors looking at you, the designers looking at everybody. There was the young kid Roger, who played my son. His dad was off by the sidelines coaching him and making sure he was ready. So there's all this artifice, but it's my job, it's our job as an actor to make believe. And I believe if we're immersed in the moment that we're playing, and we're playing, and it's called playing, if we're playing in that moment 100%, then the camera will catch the authenticity of that. And also the camera knows when we're lying. I think the camera can tell, even if you can't 100% perceive it, the camera knows, and therefore the audience that's watching it knows if it feels inauthentic. So the biggest thing for me as an actor is just getting out of my own way, getting out of my own ego, and just allowing myself to be in that moment that's been created and service it authentically.
And it was very, very well done, man.
Thank you.
You had me and my wife. I usually don't get too emotional while I'm watching something on TV, but we were wrecks, man.
Yeah. Well,
um,
I mean, I think you got a son as well, right?
yes, I
Yeah.
have two
So,
sons.
right. So, I mean, it's such a human story. We all, it's primal, right? We all understand love. We all understand loss. And it's one of the beautiful things with this show that I think that, as you said, they humanize every single character on every single end of the spectrum. I mean, we're just watching Shiv Part 1 and Part 2. I was talking to Meg about it and just so in love with the work that she did because she is playing a villain. But when you start to, and she's playing this bitch who's the ultimate mean girl and doesn't seem to have a redeemable trait in her body. And then you find out that she's come from this background with her father and what happened with her mother. And you start to understand that she's like that for a reason. And that's all about good writing. Bad writing is, and we used to accept it sort of back in the 80s. Bad writing is the idea that you're just a villain because you're a bad person. But I believe everybody is a hero in their own story. And if we can understand what makes them a hero in their own story, we don't have to relate to it in terms of that's the way I would do stuff, but it humanizes them and makes us understand why we're the way they are. And for Jordan, when Jeff back in January 19 told me that backstory, everything fit into place for me because I realized that his sadness, that scene that we just talked about, his sadness, that's the nexus point for everything in his life. Everything in his life then followed on from there. Yes, he had powers before that. Yes, he could turn himself into Icicle and do everything before that. But he wasn't necessarily a bad guy before that. He was a family man and he was in love and he was being a father. That moment drew a line in the sand and made him realize that he never wants anybody to suffer the injustice that happened to him ever again. And so he created the Injustice Society. And the Injustice Society is a group of heroes. It's a group of people who are trying to stop injustices from happening to everybody else. And I love the way that he twisted what existed in the comics, because in the comics it's kind of silly. In all politeness and respect to the comics, it was the
Mhm.
Justice Society and the Injustice Society. And the Injustice Society was just a group of villains who were trying to cause mayhem. But that's not real and it's not human and it's not relatable. And so understanding that his pain is everything, we just said, let's lean into his pain and let's put that sadness across everything because it's the thing that drives him. When he looks at his son Cameron, yes, he sees his son, but he sees his wife and that fills him with pain. When he looks at these towns that have been debilitated for whatever reason, he sees his wife and he wants to build them back up again and repair communities because he wishes he could repair his family and his community. So everything is fed from that moment. And it means a lot to me that you were emotionally moved by it. And just hearing what the fans have been saying, and so many people have reached out to me and said that they're conflicted. That's the one thing I wanted with this, is if you can make people conflicted, because if they suddenly empathize with the villain and go, I kind of get it and I kind of want him to win, that's just great storytelling.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Neil. So, I mean, the way that you feel like you're rooting for your character, you're rooting for Icicle. I mean, yeah, you're a villain, we get it, but because of that, that life altering, you know, situation that you had there, that I mean, I'm rooting for you. I
Thank
mean,
you.
and the fact that you can convert all these, people that are, on the Justice League side, I get it, but if you can convert some of these people and they can sympathize with you, I
Hmm.
mean, that's amazing. That's great acting. That's just amazing, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, and it's a combination. It's a collaborative art, filmmaking and TV making, and often the actors get the praise, but it's a big collaboration. I mean, the fact that you were moved in that moment is virtue of an amazing script, the amazing performances of the people that were in it, the way that the set design was created to create a mood, the music that was put there to create a mood, the way that the camera was placed to bring you inside the character's emotions, all of that is created. So we had, I mean, this is my 20th year of doing this professionally, and hands down, Stargirl was the best set I've worked on, but also the most enthusiastic set I've worked on. you know, and you get it in every single job. Sometimes there's the person that's phoning it in, or the person that's, you know, half their mind is on something else. But there wasn't a person that was on this set that wasn't 100% committed to it, and that's all thanks to Jeff Johns. I mean, Jeff Johns led from the top, and he led the charge 100% and infused everybody with this passion and emotion for it. Which means when we come to those scenes like the one that we're talking about, where yes, everybody's involved, but the moment they call action, there's a certain energy that needs to be on set to allow those emotions to happen. Everybody was respectful. Everybody was there trying to make sure the scene was the best it could possibly be, from the grip to the gaffer to the electrics guys, all the way through. And that kind of support from every single person and that kind of passion from every single person is rare. And I think that's part of the reason the show is such a success, because there wasn't a loose thread in the entire cast and crew.
And yeah, and you can see it, man. You can see it in every episode. You know, when I first saw episode 1 and it just started off with a bang, I said, I just, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is a feature film quality show here. You know, it's almost like, yeah, I believe it's 13 episodes, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a 13 episode film in my eyes. I mean, because the production, everything, like you said, you know, the cinematography, the CGI, the directing, the writing, the cast, everyone. I mean, it seems almost like I'm watching a movie. It's not.
Well, it
It's
is.
not
I
a.
mean, it's one of those wonderful things with good TV, and thankfully, DC Universe, DC Warner Brothers really got behind this. And when we started shooting it, it hadn't found its home yet on CW. So we were shooting it believing that this was going to be a DC Universe app show, and they were really building up the app at the time, and they wanted to put a lot of money behind it to really back the vision that Jeff had. I mean, the simple fact that Stripe is a practical robot and it cost $1 million to make. So you walk onto the set, and I finally put a photo with it on my Instagram feed a couple of months ago. But you walk onto that set, Pat Dugan's garage set, and there is a 22-foot, whatever it is, action figure that is exactly like having the articulating fingers, articulating arms, the chest opens that you can sit into. So that level of detail and expense all translates on screen, and it is like a mini movie. I mean, that first episode, I don't think I'm speaking out of school here, they spent in excess of $15 million on that episode.
Oh, wow.
And that's more than any other TV show I've been a part of. I mean, most TV shows are in the low millions per episode, and the pilot might stretch to 5, 7, 8 million, just because they're building the sets for the first time, building the costumes, so all those things cost money. This thing was double that. And that's the thing that makes people go, all right, this is something different.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell, man. And thank you for that. I gotta ask you, there's another scene recently that I just love, man, and that's the scene with you and Riley in the hotel. That scene where you're, you know, even though he's might have not been directly involved with what happened to your wife, the way that you spoke to him, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen because you're so good at what you do, at your craft. Can you talk about that scene? I mean, it was just a remarkable scene with the
Yeah.
CGI. You took your breath.
Well, thank you. He mentioned it earlier. He mentioned it when he's been away, and the reason he's been away is that he's been kind of cleaning up all the people that were indirectly responsible for the death of his wife, which was a lovely little throwaway moment. But to get a chance to see what he's been doing for the last 9 years, rooting out every single person who had a part to play. And I love the fact that it wasn't a person who directly poured the toxic waste down onto the place. They weren't directly involved. And he says that. He says, you weren't directly involved, but you knew about it, and you could have pulled the whistle. And I said this, I did a live chat with Cameron, and it kind of dawned on me. There's that lovely quote that I should find out who said it, but all evil needs to do to flourish is for innocent people to do nothing. And that's essentially what that scene is about. It's about him saying, yes, you didn't directly do something terrible, but you knew something terrible was happening and you looked the other way. You could have blown the whistle. And the fact that you didn't blow the whistle makes you as culpable as the people that did it in the first place. And I think it's such an important message for humanity anyway. And especially right now with all the movements that are happening, it's important to notice that just because you're not directly involved in something, if you are aware of injustice happening and you turn a blind eye, then you are akin to evil because you are not doing something. So I love the tone and everything he did with that. But what we talked about before we came to film it is this has been going on for a while. And Jordan, by this point, isn't emotional about it. You know, we talked about, do I get angry? Do I get emotional? And it's like, it's 9 years later. He's processed his emotion. He's shed his tears. Now he's just setting the record straight. And so, in all pun intended, it needed to be cold. He needed to sit there as judge, jury, and executioner and just lay out the facts and say, okay. One moment that was in the script that didn't make it to the actual edit, which I completely understand, but I loved, was a beautiful moment, is where my character says, you could have blown the whistle. Can you whistle? And then you saw Riley kind of going, what? And my character leans forward and he says, whistle for me. And Wyatt, kind of intimidated, tries to whistle, but his mouth is dry. And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't. And then my character just takes this huge breath and goes, and just starts whistling, and out of that the cold comes. So it was a little change on the scene, the way it was edited, and I love that. I love the fact that he's like, yeah, you need to know what you've done. Let me hold a mirror up to you so you know why you're dying. You're gonna die, but let me explain to you why.
Yeah.
And I love it because, again, it's justifiable. Anybody watching that will go, look, I wouldn't kill the dude maybe, but I get why you're pissed. And it's understandable, and it's playing those lines that I think is just so beautiful in the way Jeff and the team have written it.
That was an amazing scene, man. And thank you for that. I gotta ask you, do the other actors, do your colleagues, I know that you guys are like a family, and you know you spend hours and hours on the set with them and so forth, and they become family. But do the other actors know how much of a real life badass you are? Do they know that you can knock them out? Um,
As in me?
As in you, yeah. Do they know about your you know your boxing background? I mean, you're one of the. I'm gonna put you up there with, you know, with Jet Li. I'm gonna put you up there with Bruce Lee. I'm gonna put you up there with, and do I dare say, Steven Seagal, who can, in real life, if I run into you at a pub and I step out of line, you're gonna kick my butt.
Well, that's heady company to be in, so I appreciate that. I mean, it's like, here's the thing, I don't even see myself as that, because it's not who I am. I mean, it's like I boxed competitively because I love the sport. I've done martial arts all my life, and for me, it's never about violence or never about being tough or anything else like that. When I was younger, I wanted to be the tough kid, but as you sort of grow up and mature, you realize that's not important. For me, I love the physicality. I love the chess match of it. I love testing my body and seeing what I can put it through to see, and especially as I'm getting older. I mean, it's like I'm 44 now, so the idea that what age means and what age means to your body, it's all a mindset to me. It's like I have people I know who are 45 and consider themselves old, and I have people I know who are 65 and consider themselves young. And it's all about a mindset, and I think that it's all about constantly challenging your body and your mind to be curious, to push the limits of what you're capable of, and explore it. In terms of fighting and my stuff, I mean, a few people on set kind of joined me. I got Cameron, who plays Our Man. I got him to come to jiu-jitsu with me. So he came, and he had a couple of classes of jiu-jitsu, really loved it. He also trained with this trainer that I was working with there, Rob Jacobs, who's this amazing strength and conditioning coach. So we used to do sessions together. So you'd have Our Man and Icicle working out together, which was really fun. So yeah, for me, it's about health. What makes me mentally and physically healthy, and I try to induct everybody I can into that.
Thank you for that. Just to let you know, man, you do not look your age. You're like red wine, man.
Yeah, thank you. As long as I don't turn to vinegar when I'm opened.
I gotta ask you, what inspired you to get into boxing? Did you have any heroes like Frank? I mean, when I think of boxing, I think of, Lennox Lewis, Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, those
Yeah,
kind of
especially
guys.
the British boxers. I mean, I always loved boxing. I did martial arts, so I did a martial art when I was 15. I started a martial art called Tang Soo Do, which is a Korean martial art, which is very closely aligned to Shotokan karate. When I went to university at 18, I was studying sports science, and they had a Shotokan karate school at the university, and I went along. But I enjoyed fighting. I enjoyed putting myself against an opponent in that chess match, and they didn't do competitions out of that class. And so I was speaking to a friend of mine who was an amateur boxer, and he said there's a competition where all the universities in Britain get together and compete like a mini Olympics. And there was a boxing section in there. He said, why don't you stick yourself in the boxing competition? I'd never boxed before. So I trained for like 3 weeks with him before the competition, went along and had 4 fights in 2 days and won the gold at light middleweight.
Oh, wow.
Um, which was great. And I was hooked. So that was me at 18, and I was hooked. And then I competed for 5 years, fought nationally and internationally. And then the best thing that ever happened to me, probably when I look back at my life, was I was 23 years old and I was fighting in the final of the Welsh Championships. So the winner of that competition would have gone to the Commonwealth Games. And I was fighting against this guy who was a bouncer, and he'd been knocking everybody out, but he wasn't the best technical boxer, and I was a really good technical boxer. And so we went into the fight, and I couldn't miss and he couldn't hit. I'm like bing bing bing, throwing out jabs and just hitting him, and he was throwing these bombs, and I'm just moving out of the way and playing and having fun. And at the end of the first round, I got cocky and I dropped my hands, and I'm playing, and I hit him with a jab, and I played, and he threw this thunderous right hand over the top and hit me on the temple, and he knocked me out before I hit the canvas. I was just and fell over. And I was knocked out long enough for my mum, who was at ringside. She climbed up into the ring, and she was the one that woke me up. And the fight was televised on British TV, and so all my friends were in the pubs watching it. And that was a big ego lesson for me to try to get over that. But you have a mandatory stop. When you're knocked out, you mandatorily can't box for 30 days. So for 30 days, I had to think about what I really wanted to do. And my coach didn't visit me in the hospital. Nobody from the
Wow.
boxing board reached out to see if I was okay, even though I was taken out in an ambulance. And I was like, I'm 23 years old. I was just completing a master's degree in sports science. So I've got 2 degrees. I knew I had a ton of other options. And so I had to think what makes me happy? And does the idea of boxing for the next 5, 10 years seem like a happy option to me? And it just didn't. And I used to act when I was a kid in school plays. So I was like, let me see if I can pursue acting and see if I can make a career out of that.
And man, that's a crazy story. I'm glad that you're okay. Thank
Yeah.
God.
No, it was great. It was one of those things. I would have never have thought being knocked out would be one of the things I look back on and I'm grateful for. But it stopped this train. Like if I'd have won that fight, I would have gone to the Commonwealth Games. If I'd have gone to the
Mhm.
Commonwealth Games, win, lose or draw at the Commonwealth Games, you start looking at the Olympics, where you go to the Olympic team. If I get selected to the Olympic team 2 years later, I go to the Olympics and compete. If I didn't get selected for the Olympics, then I would have turned professional. It takes 3 to 5 years as a pro to learn if you're going to make any money at it. So we were looking at a 5 to 7 year plan, me and my coach, and
Mhm.
it suddenly stopped that dead. And I'm so glad it did, because the I'm a runner. I'm not a fighter. I'm one of these people that, if confrontation comes about, I'll do everything in my power to not get in a conflict.
Mhm.
We're all. I I think one of the things fighting and being in martial arts has taught me is we are all so fragile, and we puff
Yes.
ourselves up egoically or physically, but we're also incredibly fragile. And the idea that um, it doesn't take much to break this blood bag that we call a body. And
Yeah.
it's incredibly scary how easy that can be done. And the idea of fighting just kind of makes me shiver now. So I'm
Mhm.
so glad that I was forced out of that. My hand was forced, and I ended up changing the direction of my life, because I love my job. I love my job so much. I love the fact that I get to tell stories and be a part of this world that as a kid I used to just sit and watch films and TV and just marvel at it. And the fact I get to be in that world still amazes me to this day.
Wow, thank you for that, and you're awesome and you're great at it. So,
Thank you.
was there like a particular movie, or was there anything that, I mean, inspired you? I mean, was there anything you saw that said, "Hey, I want to do that"?
I mean, it's so much. I mean, I'm a kid of the 80s, right? So it's like Richard Donner's Superman was a big one, and I remember watching all of the Superman. But
Yeah,
the first one in particular was incredible. I remember the Michael Keaton Batman was a big moment for me when I saw that. Um, Loved Robert Zemeckis, so seeing Who Framed Roger Rabbit was huge, and Castaway and Forrest Gump. So I mean, I'm just a cinephile. I love stories. I love films, and now TV. TV wasn't a big thing when I was growing up. It was films that you aspired to be a part of, and it was really in
yeah,
the last like 15, 18 years with things like Sopranos, 24, those kind of high-end TV shows changed the landscape, and now TV is arguably better than film with the quality of storytelling and the amount of money that gets put into it. There's a chance to tell stories on a bigger level.
yeah. And thank you for that. And you mentioned that TV is bigger than film right now, especially with the pandemic that we're experiencing. There's more of a spotlight on TV,
Yeah.
definitely. So I got to ask you, a lot of people don't know this, but you're one of the few folks out there that actually got to kick Captain America's ass. Um, Chris Evans.
He got the
uh,
best of me in the end, though.
so I got to ask you, man, how did that feel? And do you tell friends about that? Is that,
Well, it was funny because he wasn't Captain America at the time. So Julio's talking about a film that I did called Push, which was this fantastic film, superhero-based film. It was originally thought of as a trilogy, but they only made the one film out of it, and it was fantastic. And they asked me to come along board and play this guy who had telekinetic powers, lift stuff up, throw stuff. And so I have kind of two altercations with Chris. The first time I beat the snot out of him in this, and you can see it on YouTube. I watched it about 6 months ago, and it's a really good fight. They
yeah,
call it I think it's telekinetic gunfight. You can find it on YouTube, and it's just the two of us kind of virtually moving guns around and trying to shoot each other until eventually we then fight in a different way. And then we finally have a fight at the end of the film. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. But it was great. He wasn't Captain America then, and we used to go and play volleyball together because I lived in LA back then. I'm in Vancouver now, and we used to go and play volleyball together. And I remember we were playing volleyball one day, and he was saying that he's just been cast as Captain America. So he's a good dude. I'm very happy for his success.
that's awesome, man. And thank you for that story. I mean, I love that theme. I got to ask you this question. What would Coach, what would I mean, you
Sasha
did,
Belov.
yeah, Sasha, exactly, from Make It or Break It. What would Coach Sasha say to Jordan, McKent, if when he is having one of those bad days? How would how would your character, inspire? I mean, what would he say to, what pep talk would he say to him?
That's a good question, dude. I have no idea what Sasha would say to him. First of all, he'd probably be really surprised that he looks exactly the same as him. That'd probably freak him out. But wait a second. Um,
Doppelganger.
yeah, he's from Sweden. He's from Iceland. Maybe my dad's took a road trip one day, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what he'd say to
Multiverse.
him. It's a good question. Here's the thing. I don't think that Jordan isn't an emotional person. It's one of the things we talked a lot about with Jeff is that, yes, he's an emotional person in the fact that he has this great sadness, but he's not led by his emotions. You won't see Jordan having a fit of emotion. You won't see him suddenly succumb to anger and just and just do something. He's very calculated. We leaned into the cold. He's cold. His emotions have hardened over time, and he is emotionally cold. And so everything he does is calculating and pre-thought out. There's a couple of moments coming up where you see a little glimmer that there's a fire burning underneath there. But he doesn't lose himself to his emotions. So I don't think Sasha would need to talk him down off a ledge because he'd never stepped to the ledge in the first place.
Great point. Yeah, and thank you for that.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome. We got
man,
Carmen here from Germany.
oh yes.
That's great.
um, I got you. You were also on a show called Dream Team, a little show from. Yeah, I mean not little. It was a big show. Are you
Oh, in
a
India.
football? Are you a football fan?
I'm not a sports fan. I really don't care about sports. I joke that I missed that gene, the sort of boy gene that makes you care about sports and cars. I wouldn't know a Hyundai from a Mitsubishi, and I couldn't care less about sports, apart from fight sports. I watch boxing and I watch a little bit of UFC, but yeah, team sports, other sports, I just didn't get that gene. Just and I'm so glad I didn't. The idea of needing to watch a team play every single week. I'm just very glad I don't have that. I don't have that much time in the week to dedicate
Mm.
to it. I guess different people. It's like Marx once said that sport is the opiate for the masses, and some people have religion, some people have sport. I have storytelling, and it sounds cliche to say it. I love stories. Any given chance I've got, I'm watching films, I'm watching TV shows, I write. I was supposed to direct my first feature film in September, but that's now because of COVID being moved to spring. I live, breathe, read, talk about stories. I love them to death. So sports just didn't really factor in for me.
And you mentioned, and thank you for that. You mentioned that you like to write, and storytell. You're a quadruple threat, man. I mean, you're an actor, you're a writer, you're a singer, you're a poet, boxer. I mean, what else can I add to that? I mean, you're a jack of all trades.
I can
Out
moonwalk
of
as well.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're awesome, and
Thank
I
you.
just started watching Absentia last night with my wife, and we got hooked, man. We binged season one.
Oh, you've binged it
Wow, I
already?
mean, we binged season one last night. We
Damn.
were up late, man. And let me tell
Wow,
you
check you
something,
out.
dude. I mean, and we're pretty good about figuring out who the bad guy is, or who,
Right.
with CSIs, or whether it's CSI or Criminal Minds or any of those shows,
Yeah.
and you've been in a few of those. But in this one, man, we could not figure out who it was. And I mean, you guys threw me off. You're acting, because I thought at one point, and spoiler alert, I thought you were the guy that was pulling all the strings.
Mm.
But, I mean, that's such an amazing show. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the show that show's so personal to me. It's an incredible show. 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I was really struggling. I was in LA. I hadn't really booked a job for about a year and a half. The jobs I had booked were 1 day jobs, so you get paid a 1 day rate, which isn't very much. And once tax and agents take their cut, it's very little. I was living off credit cards. I was really struggling emotionally, and I was also in a relationship for 10.5 years, and that was breaking down. And so I was really struggling and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and acting didn't seem to be going the way I wanted it to. And I made the decision that I was going to move back to the UK, that maybe LA wasn't the fit for me because it wasn't helping my mental health. And suddenly this audition came in for Absentia, this new show, and it was this renegade show. It was being done by Sony TV, but they didn't have a buyer for it yet. It was going to go on Sony's AXN in the Latin territories, but no buyer for it yet in the rest of the world. And it was going to shoot in Bulgaria, but it was an American project, but it was being produced by Israelis. It was kind of all over the place. And I did the audition for it for the character of Jack, and they offered it to me and flew me over. And thankfully, that job bailed me out in a ton of ways. It bailed me out financially, that I was able to claw myself out of a lot of the debt that I brought up, but it also gave me a love of being back on set and made me realize that it's the thing that I wanted to do. And we finished season one, and as you know, you've just seen it. I was like, I don't know how they bring this back. They've tied it with a beautiful bow at the end, and if it was just one season and that was the one season that we got, then I'm grateful to it, and it was a beautiful experience, and I'll move on with my life. And then the Prince of Monaco saw the pilot episode, and they have the Monaco Television Festival every year over there. And he said, I would love to premiere this at the Monaco Television Festival. This is what, 2017, I guess. And so they flew us over there, and we had this big premiere. People saw it, it got a lot of press, and based upon that, they announced a second season. And I was like, oh, wow, we got to go and do this again. That's awesome. And we finished the second season. I was like, I don't know how they topped that. That was great. So maybe that's the end of it. And then it's the little show that could. People, you know, it's on Amazon. People found it. People watched it. We've just finished the third season, which actually airs on the 17th next week. So the third season, all 10 episodes, come out next week. And people love this show. And it was just this gift that landed in my lap that I couldn't be more grateful for.
I mean, that's an amazing story. Wow, the Prince of Monaco.
Yeah, right. It was surreal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of like sitting in this big auditorium. There's the Prince of Monaco there, and that royal family, and several celebrities who were all there celebrating their projects. And there we are up on screen with our show, airing it to everybody, and just going, wow. And to think that 6 months before, I was seriously contemplating, I wasn't going to give up the industry, but I had to contemplate what my next step was because things weren't working for me. And that's the beauty and the downfall of the entertainment industry, especially as an actor. Things can turn on a dime, right? They can turn on a dime. You can be, my old acting coach, Michael Armstrong, used to say it's champagne and water days. You're either one or the other, and there's nowhere in between, because you can be flat broke at the end of your tether and not entirely sure what you're going to do, and suddenly you book a job, and suddenly there's money in the bank, and people are interested in you, and people want to do interviews, and they want to talk to you, and then that show ends, and everything drops off again. And the art, I guess, of it is figuring out how to transition those moments between the champagne and the water days, so you don't continually peak and trough, because it's exhausting living in that kind of uncertainty, but it's also exhilarating. The idea of, I don't know what's next for me, and I can't say with any certainty what's next for me, and I look forward to what that next thing is. I mean, much like the beginning of January 2019, I was about to go off to shoot Kingsman. They'd done a prequel to the Kingsman movie, and I was about to go to London to go and shoot that, and knew that was taking me through until March, and had no idea what was coming up. And suddenly my phone rings, and there's Jeff Johns saying, hey, you want to come and play Icicle? So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I saw the preview for the Kingsman, and I can't wait to see that. With Ray Fiennes is in that, correct? I mean,
Yeah, it's got a great cast. Yeah, Ray Fiennes is in it. Jaimin Hunzu, who I worked with on Push, is in it. There's some really cool people.
and thank you for talking about, you know, those highs and lows with acting, because what a lot of people don't realize is that you know, you're not constant. Sometimes you're not booking those jobs, and you can go through those water moments, like you said. You know, not. I mean, I believe I just heard recently Tom Cavanaugh talk recently about this. You know, you're competing with, like, you know, George Clooney. You're competing with Brad Pitt, you know, of the world. You're hoping that they
Yeah.
turn down some of these roles, right?
Well, some of the great stories that I love about actors landing roles are because other actors turn them down. I mean, that's basically Hollywood in a nutshell. I mean, we would have had Tom Selleck playing Indiana Jones if it wasn't for the fact he conflicted with Magnum. And so we ended up with Harrison Ford, and nobody can imagine the idea of Harrison Ford not being Indiana Jones now. So that's kind of like the way it is. There are various tiers to this game, and obviously it's a business, and it's a business that is based upon marketability, and that's what fame is. Fame is this arbitrary word that makes you think that somebody's important. Fame is only important because the degree of fame with which you have makes you marketable. There's a number above your head that's constantly changing, and if you are Indiana Jones, your number is something, and if you're Indiana Nobody, your number is something else. And ultimately, everybody is going to go to the person whose number is the highest, because that gives the greatest chance of their show or film finding an audience and getting seen, and ultimately making money. But
Yeah.
eventually the big names can't do it, and the smaller names can't do it, and the smaller names can't do it, and they end up somewhere where they find somebody else, and then that person jumps to the top, and now they're the name, and so the dance continues. And Tom's a great example of that. Tom's such a phenomenal actor, but he kind of disappeared off the radar for a little bit until Flash came along, and everyone was reminded, oh, wow, this guy's incredible. He's just been waiting
Yeah.
for a showcase to show that talent, and now he's moved up several notches on that ladder again, and hopefully there's offers that are flooding to him. It's a really interesting process, and it used to cause me a lot of distress of the idea that how do I get in a position that allows me to show what I'm capable of, so that people will then employ me, and that's the kind of thinking that can tie you in a knot. The kind of competitive thinking is the sort of thing that can tie you in a knot, because I don't see myself as competing. I don't see myself as in competition with anybody. It's literally the sort of economics of the film industry makes sense to me, in the fact that if I don't get a job, it's either because I'm not right for the job, or there is somebody who brings more to the project than I can bring, i.e., fame, notoriety, success, whatever it happens to be, it will elevate the project. So it's not personal. If I don't get it, it's not a personal thing. In the same way that if you buy your bagel from shop A or shop B, it's not a personal thing. You just prefer the bagels that are in shop B. You don't think the owner of shop A is a prick. You just prefer their bagels. And I'm a bagel salesman. And if you like what I like, you know, what I bring to the table, then great. If not, then it's something else. And so I've learned over 20 years to have a little more healthy perspective on it, because that allows me to just do my job. I don't go in the room, whether it be an audition or on set, and think, okay, I've got to do this because this is going to be the thing that showcases me. No, I'm just going to go in and do my job. What is my job today? My job is to make people, i.e. myself and everybody else, believe that I am a man who is about to lose his wife, and I'm about to introduce my son to the fact that he'll never see his mother again. And let me do that. And if I'm thinking about the external, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, and thank you for that. You know, I could definitely tell that you're a humble person. You know, you possess humility in regards to the industry itself. I gotta ask you. We have some fan questions, but before we get to the fan questions, I gotta ask you this. You know, you mentioned Tom, you mentioned the Flash. You guys are technically now CW, right? So I gotta ask you, they did an episode a couple of seasons ago with
Mm-hmm.
Darren Chris,
Okay,
which
yeah.
was a musical episode, and I know you have a theater and musical background. Would you yourself love to see a musical episode of Stargirl?
Yeah, it'd be great. Jordan can sing the hits from Frozen. That'd be awesome.
You know, to so that everyone can hear your chops, right? I mean, you gotta.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Like whatever Jeff would want to do with the show, I think that he's got such a great handle on it. It'd be fun. It'd be fun. I mean, and there's so many great singers. I mean, you got Jake, who plays Henry, who is an amazing musician. He just released another single. Meg is a phenomenal musician. I actually lived with Chris Baker, who plays Brainwave. We lived together when we were shooting in Atlanta. There's my puppy. He's just arrived. Hey, Roscoe, you got anything to say?
Happy
No.
belated birthday, Roscoe!
Yeah, he was one yesterday. We had a little birthday party for him. He's all cracked out on doggy birthday cake. Yeah, but I live
Nice.
with Chris Baker, who plays Brainwave, and he's a phenomenal blues musician, blues guitarist. We used to have gin and tonic in the evening after work and just sit there, and he'd just be sittling, just like and just playing these cool little blues riffs. So it wouldn't be too difficult to do a musical version if they wanted to. They got the people there that could pull it off.
That would be. I would love to see that, man. I would pay to see it, honestly. Uh, Talking about your music background, who were your influences when you were growing up? Who were your band? Did you have a band or?
I didn't really have bands. John, yeah, Roscoe, come up here, jump up, come on. It's kind of pacing around. Come on, up you come. Come join in the chat. There we go. I didn't really have any sort of influences for me with music. I loved. I now look back at it as I'm getting older and realize that it's always just been storytelling to me. I love storytelling, and people love to pigeonhole somebody. I remember when I released my first album, and I took 6 months off from acting to kind of work in the studio and work on the album and then release it. And I did interviews back in the UK where I did the release and a release gig. And so many people were saying, do you think you'll go back to acting now, or do you think music will be the thing? And I've never thought of it as a linear binary thing. I see myself as a storyteller, and whether that medium be acting, writing, directing, music, it's all the same thing to me. It's just a different expression of it. So I always just loved telling stories. I used to write stories as a kid. I used to write songs as a kid, and then when I learned to play the guitar, I just transposed that into the guitar and wrote songs. And it's all part of the same clay in my mind.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for that. That's awesome. I believe Cameron is saying that he was your influence. I thought I saw something on here.
Oh, is Cameron on here?
Cameron's on here. Hey, Cameron.
If he's still on here, then yeah, he put up a picture today of us working out together. I put it in the stories, and he's a beast. He's training hard. I mean, I think that thankfully one of the things with Icicle is I don't have to wear a muscle suit. You know, I don't have to be this powerful hero. Cameron has to wear this muscle suit that puffs him up to become our man, and he's got something to live up to there. So he's been putting in the work to mean that he can be our man in and out of the suit.
That's awesome, man. He's doing great, by the way. He's just such a talented actor as well, man. He's great. Let's get to the fan questions. We got a lot of questions, and I do apologize, Neil. We're running a little bit out of time.
Okay.
So one of your fans is saying, one of their questions is, who do you think would win in a fight between Icicle and Mr. Freeze?
I'm not as au fait on Mr. Freeze. I mean, I'm really kind of going off the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze that they did in the Batman movie. Icicle would kick his ass. That's not even a question.
I don't think so.
I think Icicle is prepared to take it to a level that a lot of other people aren't prepared to take it to. The fact that he killed the wizard's kid. He's like, anybody who's in the way of his plan gets to go, and it's not emotional. It's just like you're a fly in the ointment, so you have to go. So yeah, I think he'd kick his ass.
It's not personal. It's just business, right?
Yeah, it's just business.
Thank you for that. Another fan question is, have you heard of any possibility of doing a crossover with like Supergirl or The Flash?
I personally haven't heard anything from that. I'm excited by the idea. They've referenced several times, as I'm sure many of you noticed, about Green Arrow. And I believe that Berlanti is in development with a Green Arrow Corp TV series. So that would be a really fun one that Stargirl would naturally fit into. And maybe they will. I mean, they now we're officially part of the CW. The announcement was season 2 that we're a full CW show, not part of the DC universe anymore. I'm sure they'll have plans to kind of cross-pollinate.
Thank you for that. I think Cameron just said, "If you ever used a hot tub," or what?
Have I ever used a hot tub? Is Cameron saying that? Is that a euphemism, Cam?
Thank you for that. That's a great answer. Which hero or villain are you hoping to see join the show in the near future?
I don't know. I mean, it's like Sandman's a great character. I think Sandman will be really interesting. I mean, they laced a couple of the characters into the opening scene in episode 1, where you see there was a point where Hawkman was actually in there as well, and I love Hawkman. I'm really good friends with Falk Henschel, who played Hawkman in the CW Legends of Tomorrow series. That'd be fun if they bring Falk into it as Hawkman, because he did an amazing job. There's so many great heroes that they can pick from, and that's the beautiful thing now with the Justice Society and Injustice Society. They just have so many to choose from that they can slowly just lace in. So I really think the world is their oyster with regards to that.
Thank you for that.
Roscoe was bored of that answer. He was like, nah, that was lame. I'm off. So judgy.
Thank you for that. I gotta ask, I did see Dr. Fate is in there. He's one of my favorite characters.
Dr. Fate's great. And also you might see that the Shade
Oh, wow.
The shade is teased in the back of the photo, the image that is in the Injustice Society. There's a massive mural of the Injustice Society, a big painting. And in the back there, you get Grundy. I was so excited when I heard that Grundy was going to be in the show. And we'll see more of Grundy as the show goes on. So that's really exciting to see. But also lurking in the back there is the Shade, and he's a phenomenal character. So I think that Jeff is just going to be drip feeding us these amazing characters.
I'm telling you, man, this is the best show that I've seen in a long time. I mean, I love the adaptation of all these characters. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
What is the best part of playing such a cool villain?
Um, I love the emotion behind it. I love the fact that he is just deeply, deeply sad. He's devastated by what happened, and he hasn't been able to move past this sadness. And so everything he does is laced with that. And I love that Jeff let me lean into it, especially with episode 3 where we kind of played it. But also with this guy, I love that I relate to him. I mean, there's a scene that's coming up. It's a very slight spoiler alert, so hopefully I don't get a red dot on me where CW snipers me from somewhere. But there's a scene that comes up where the Justice Society learn about Jordan's plan. And I love that scene because it gets outlined to them, and you see them go, wait a second, that doesn't sound like a bad guy. Which is one of the things I love with him, because it's just like, yeah, he's not the bad guy. In his own mind, he's not the bad guy. He's the hero. He's trying to do the right thing. He just does it with the wrong means.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Does that make sense? Oh, you approved of that answer. Yeah, approved of that.
Cameron says, would you sleep in a freezer?
Would I sleep in a freezer?
That's what Cameron, I believe that's what
I mean,
him.
I take ice baths and I take cold showers. I have done for the last 6 years. So I don't think I'd sleep in a freezer, but I definitely sit in one.
Another fan asked, now that you play a villain, are there any similarities between you and Icicle in real life?
I mean, there's crossovers. I'm not one of those actors, and I don't really get the actors that are able to do this, and there are very, very few that have pulled it off. There's always shades of the person, the actor, in everything, because of course you're bringing yourself to every single role, and so yeah, there's shades of me in that role in terms of my outlook and my approach, and then the writing kind of enhances that. So yeah, there would be. I mean, I see Jordan as having very strong morals. He has a very strong compass about what he believes is right and wrong in the world, and that's something that I like to think that I have.
Thank you for that. Great answer. Someone says, my dream is to become an actor one day. Any tips and tricks you can provide?
If you want to act. I mean, that's it. There's no sort of one way to do this. I mean, the first thing I would do is, if you haven't trained, find a way of training. There are a lot of online courses that you can do. There's those masterclass things that you can do where you meet your new teacher. And then immerse yourself in the industry, or at least the portion of the industry that you want to be in. If you want to be a theatre actor, go and see theatre, read plays. If you want to be TV, film, be literate on the stuff that's going on. And then find other people, find a community, and take every opportunity you can to act. Like when I first started out, I would do student plays, I would do student short films. Anything that got me in front of a camera and got me a chance to act meant that I was, one, doing the thing that I wanted to do, and two, I was learning and growing. And you're also building relationships, and gradually over the course of time, those relationships grow. But if you want to do it, there's no other way than just doing it. In whatever that means, immersing yourself within the practice of it. So, and don't give up. It's a very, very difficult industry, and it's fickle, and there's no certainty that you're ever going to work, or if you have worked, you're ever going to work again. There's nothing that says, even though I've been working for 20 years, that I will ever book another job again. And that can be crippling for some people who want a degree of certainty in their lives. But if you want it, and you want it, then you should pursue it. I can't really put it any clearer than that.
Awesome. There you go. Great answer. Thank you so much. And there you have it, you guys. The multi-talented the man,
Bra, bra, bra.
Neil Jackson. Thank you so much for taking the time, Neil.
My pleasure.
You are seriously, you're the man. I can't wait to see the rest of Absentia, and I look forward to seeing all your work in the future. I wish you nothing but the best of success, and I hope to see you at a Comic-Con one day.
I'd love that. Once we open back up again, I'd love to be there.
Thank you so much.
All right, dude. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on
Have
here.
a blessed day. Take care, man.
Much love to you all and everybody who watches. Thank you.
Much love. Take care, man.
Cheers, brother. Bye.